Copshop is a movie directed by Joe Carnahan. And side note, Joe Carnahan came out with another movie in 2021 called Boss Level. I highly recommend that movie. But he came out with Cop Shop, and I had no idea this movie existed until I was walking past the theater one day and I saw a poster, and I thought the poster looked very interesting. And then I was like, oh, it's directed by Joe Carnahan. He just made Boss Level that I saw earlier in 2021 that looked great. So, hey, I'll give Cop Shop a chance, but I just never got around to it until recently. And then I saw a couple of reviews for it because I was curious, and I heard nothing but praise for this thing. It has 82% on Rotten Tomatoes, a 77% liked score from fans. So that's good all the way around. So I was like, all right, you know what? I'm intrigued. Let me check this out. So I watched it, and the movie is about Frank Grillo, and his character's name is Teddy. And Frank Grillo is this man on the run. He is running from Gerard Butler's character, and shenanigans ensue between these two. There's the main character in here her name is Alexis Louder. She plays a young police officer named Valerie, and she's just caught in between these two men. She's just caught in the middle of this big, I don't know, conspiracy going on here, and she's trying to get to the bottom of it. And so just watching this movie from the beginning to the end, I was invested. From the very opening scene, we meet Valerie, and I guess it's the police chief or sergeant, and he's interesting. He's like you know what Ice Cube said in 21 Jump Street. He's that kind of guy. And it's great. He plays it perfectly. But, there's this mystery going on here. We don't really know what's happening at the beginning. We just see Frank Grillo in a situation, and then, he gets caught, he gets locked up. Then we see Gerard Butler, and he's scheming something. So then it's like these two end up in this police station together, and I'm like, what's going on here? And then there's all these interesting characters that come in, like we meet people in the police station and we get to know them a little bit. Then there's like other characters that come in and out of this thing that are interesting and colorful. There's lots of colorful characters in this movie. But beyond the characters, visually, this movie is stunning. It has this flair to it. I don't know exactly. It plays like this old school music. And I don't think I'm like very intelligent, so I don't know exactly what time period the music comes from. I mean, I can look it up, but I kind of don't want to. But it has this old school music in it that gives it this old school flair, even though it's shot during the modern day. But it's cool and it's hip. And, just visually, when you see the destruction on screen, it's visceral. You see people get shot in the head, shot in the chest. People just get shot the F up in this movie. Like, I heard people comparing this to Assault on Precinct 13 by John Carpenter. And that's a valid statement. This is just like Assault on Precinct 13 by John Carpenter, not the remake, the original. It's very visceral. Like, you see when you see people get shot in here, it's not just like brutal. You feel like people are actually getting shot in this movie. It's so good. But then when people get killed, you feel your heart break. Like, I felt sad for these individuals getting shot because I love that the movie set up these characters before they get killed. Like, they illustrate who these characters are, what they're all about, and then when they get killed, I'm like, no, don't do it. Don't, oh my God, they just killed them. So it's sad. And then their deaths linger. It's not like this person dies and we move on. I mean, yeah, people die and we move on, but then there are scenes where, the movie reflects on these deaths, and I really enjoy that kind of stuff. So even though this is like an action extravaganza of just blood and murder and all this craziness, there's a lot of heart to this. Like with the way it's directed, the visual nature of Joe Carnahan and how he executes the visual flair and style of this movie inserted with the old school music is just mwah. Then the performances from everyone are believable and fantastic. The action scenes are very intense. They're nail-biting. The brutality of this is just off the charts. Like, this is the kind of action I want to see. Like, pulling no punches, brutality, brute force, visceral, hardcore, just action, people getting shot up and killed. But then when they die on screen, it's heartbreaking and sad because we get to know these people. You know, it's not just like, here are some bodies and they're just going to hit the floor. It's like, no, it's that, but then it's more than that because we get to know these people, like I said. So yeah, just all the way around, this movie is mwah. It's overall, this movie is a great movie. It is a great movie. My only complaint about this movie is the ending. I think the ending is a little confusing. I think it's an awful ending. It's an awful ending. This movie could have just been bookend with like, okay, just it could have been a straightforward ending. But for me, I feel like the ending is setting up a sequel. And I'm intrigued by that because this movie's so great that I would watch a sequel, but at the same time, I'm like, why can't you just condense this thing, have a solid ending, and leave it at that? Because right when you think it's going to end, you're like, all right, I'm satisfied with that, leave it at that, it's over, it's a great movie. But then they have to keep going and going and going, and I'm just like, where is this going? Then you're thinking, okay, it's going to go in this one direction. And then it abruptly ends, and I'm just like, what the hell was that? Dude, now this movie sucks to me. But it's still a great movie from like beginning all the way to like the last few minutes. I was invested. I was into it. I was like thrilled on the edge of my seat, guessing what's gonna happen, who's setting up who, what's going on. It had my interest up to those last few moments in the end where I just threw my hands up in the air like, what the fuck. But throughout the whole movie, I was invested, glued to the screen, edge of my seat, like yelling at the screen, thinking things, throwing my hands in the air like It was a roller coaster. And it was fun, and I enjoyed it. But that ending, no. That ending is trash. But I think this is a great movie, though. This is a great movie. That's all I have to say. But I really want to spoil the ending. I want to get this out of my system. So if you don't want to hear spoilers about how this movie ends, then you turn this off now. Spoiler warning. If you don't want to hear spoilers about how this movie ends, then you turn this off right now. Spoiler warning. So at the very end, we find that Jalar Butler is actually a good guy, even though he's an assassin. Like, there's scenes of dialogue where he's like, I'm not a psycho, I'm a professional. And then this other guy pops in, Toby Huss, who is a great actor. He plays a psychopath in this movie. And that's what Jalar Butler said. He's like, that guy's a psychopath, I'm a professional. And like, dude, when Toby Huss shows up on scene, he's funny, he's a colorful character, he's evil as fuck, but you're like, man, he's kind of cool, even though he's like fucked up in the head. But he's just wasting people left and right, and it's like, holy fuck, this guy, like, when you have the showdown between uh, Toby Haas's character's name is Anthony. When you have the showdown between Frank, who plays Teddy, and then Toby Haas, who plays Anthony, I'm on the edge of my seat. I'm like, who's going to get who? Because they already set Anthony up as a badass. Teddy's a guy who just runs away, so he's fighting, for his family. And then Vedek is just, who's by Jalar Butler, is just like, get me out of the cell. So, like, the situations these characters are in are great. So you reach the end and you find out, okay, I wanted to believe Frank Grillo because they set this whole thing up like, oh, he had a family and they died, and you feel bad for him, and you're thinking Jalar Butler's the evil guy. But no, it's like the tables turn, so that's an interesting twist. And then, Frank Grillo comes and shoots Jalar Butler, and I'm like, oh, they killed him out of nowhere. And then Alexis Louder, who plays Valerie, and Frank Grillo, they have this show off at the end where I'm like, bro, Joe Carnahan, make a Max Payne movie, bro. Please make a Max Payne movie. And have Frank Grillo up in there. Or Matt Smith as Max Payne. Like, do it. Like, at the end of this movie, I was just thinking, I felt Max Payne vibes, bro, throughout the whole thing. But at the very end, okay, so Alexis kills Frank, or Jalar Butler finishes the job. Jalar Butler killed, he comes out of nowhere, no explanation of how he survived, but whatever, it's fun. He kills Frank Grillo. And at the end, I'm thinking, okay, they're going to do this thing where, the people who used to be enemies are now like, hey, like Fast and the Furious, are at the end of the first Fast and the Furious, where, Paul Walker let Vin Diesel go, even though they started off on opposite sides of the law at first. Or like at the end from Dusk Till Dawn, with Julia Lewis and George Clooney have that camaraderie where it's like, hey, we saved each other, and, even though I'm a bad guy, just let me go. So I thought it was gonna end like that, where it's like, Gerard Butler, he's the villain, but he has a heart. He has a good heart. He's true to his word, and he lets Alexis live, and he saves her. And then I'm thinking, since she's an officer of the law, she's supposed to arrest him, but he saved her life. So she's just gonna be like, all right, you can go. I'm gonna let you free, and I'm not gonna say anything about this. It would have been a perfect ending. I thought it was gonna end right there at the police station when and Gerard Butler and Alexis come out of the police station, and you hear the sirens coming. Gerard Butler gets in his car, he drives away, and then the paramedics and the fire department show up, and then it could have been an ending right there, like at the end of From Dusk Till Dawn, where the camera pans out, and you're just like, man, all this carnage happened. Alexis is just standing there wounded, and Gerard Butler, he gets away, and you pan out, and then just be like, that's the end. That's the end of the movie, and I would have been satisfied with that. But no, this movie had to keep going where Alexis, she's in the car or she's in the back of the ambulance, and Gerard Butler has this nice line of dialogue where Anthony, he has a bounty on his head, and then there was this whole conversation about Gerard Butler cutting off his head and giving it to this guy in Chicago for the bounty, and there's this nice scene at the end where Gerard calls somebody and he's like, yeah, that bounty in Chicago, tell him I'm on my way. I got a nice head of lamb for him. So I thought that was very cool. But then it keeps going, and then the Alexis character, Alexis Louder, her character, she's like, get the fuck out of the ambulance, and then she starts driving. I'm like, what the fuck is she doing? And Gerard Butler, I'm like, is he gonna get away? Is he not gonna get away? Because they're aware of, that he's in the stolen police car. But then Alexis, she's driving, I'm thinking, okay, so the movie's gonna end with her chasing him for some reason, even though he saved her life and he could have killed her, but he didn't. She's gonna chase him and arrest him, and I'm thinking, okay, they're gonna meet, because then the movie does this weird thing with this the split screen. There's the split screen, and you see Gerard Butler and Alexis' face, and I'm thinking, okay, they're going to have a head-on collision, they're going to meet on the road somewhere, and, they're going to have this final showdown or something, I don't know. But the movie just abruptly ends with this split screen, and Alexis is driving the ambulance, they're both, Gerard and Alexis, listening to the same tune, and it just ends. And I'm thinking, like, what the fuck is that? Like, why? Clearly, I guess they're setting it up for a sequel. And when I think about that, like, I'm intrigued by a sequel, but at the same time, like, you don't need it. Because normally sequels aren't as good as the original, especially if it feels forced. But then the thing I'm thinking is that it could be intriguing as long as Joe Carnahan comes back to direct. As long as they bring all of the original, like, cast and crew and elements from the first movie. Because the thing that intrigued me about this was the directing from Joe Carnahan, how all of the characters had their own unique personalities. They were very colorful characters, and when they died, I felt the deaths. Like that scene in the bathroom where one of the officers has to kill his friend, and the guy is on the ground pleading, like, please, I got a family, and it's like, it's sad. Even when the black sergeant, the chief, gets killed, like when he got hit in the jaw, I was like, don't kill him, and then he lived, and then, one of his comrades ended up blowing his head off, and I felt bad. I was like, fuck, man, I liked him. I felt that. Even the guy at the front desk, we get to know him, and then he gets killed. I'm like, fuck, But it's fun at the same time. And I'm like, God dang, bro, like, this is brutal as fuck, and it's sad, but it's entertaining. So when the guy at the front desk is looking up known associates for Gerard Butler's character, we see this list of people who are like all of these different assassins. And so I was thinking, after the Anthony assassin guy showed up, I was thinking more people were going to show up, kind of like Smoking Aces, but that wasn't the case. So I was entertained with what I got. So I'm thinking in a sequel, you could be like, all right, we're going to explore this even more. We're going to explore who all these other assassins, professional hired killers are, and we're going to learn what this organization is that Frank Grillo was working for. Because that was one of the confusing parts. They were like, there's this scene of exposition where Frank Grillo is explaining why he's on the run, but I was still kind of confused. There's like, they killed this attorney, and then, I don't know what it's very confusing to me, but I was like, whatever, man, I'm just here for this entertaining stuff that's happening beyond the explanation. So I just ran with it. And so, yeah, they can expand on that, like, what is this organization? Who are these people? Who are these assassins? Whatever. They can do that. but don't go too deep into it to where it's just like, here's this linear list of people who are a part of this organization, and just like trying to figure all of it out. This is, I don't want that. I want what this movie had, like just fun action, interesting characters, visceral gunfights, nail biting stuff here. And I'm like, how can you do that twice? Clearly, it's setting itself up for a sequel, and I kind of am just like, I don't like it because this movie is just like it ends on a cliffhanger, and it's confusing. It's like, what is Valerie doing? Is she trying to hunt down Gerard Butler by the end? There's no clear conclusion to this, and I'm thinking this movie should have just been straightforward, cookie cutter, even though it's not. But it was like it's a simple premise. You got two men. You got one guy on the run from this organization. Gerard Butler's the assassin, and he tries to find a way in there to kill the guy. And then you got, this other guy who works, I guess, for the same organization. He comes in trying to get the job done. And then it's just like in this police station, and shenanigans ensue, and bloodshed, and action. And then by the end, it's like, the twists, tables have turned. You think the good guy was actually good, but no, he's really bad. Frank Grillo gets killed. Gerard Butler, you thought was bad, is actually good. And then, the hero of this film, Alexis, has a camaraderie with the villain. And it's like they stand on some mutual respect ground where she's like, all right, you saved my life. Even though you're a bad guy, I'll let you go because you saved me. So I'll give you that 10-second car or whatever. It's like, I'll let you go, But it didn't end. It could have just ended right there. I would have been satisfied with that. But no, it had to keep going and end on some conclusion cliffhanger. Hey, look out for a sequel. And I'm just like, nah, man. I don't like this ending. But overall, the movie's great. I had fun with it. But the ending to me, I don't like it. I don't like the ending. What more can I say? Other than that, yeah, I'll look out for a sequel. I'm intrigued. I'll check it out. But other than that, I didn't like the ending to this movie, even though everything else was great. This ending is, to me, the ending is garbage. The ending is, like, the last few moments before the credits is garbage, but the rest of the movie is great, from beginning to those last few moments. That's all I have to say.